Isn't it great when logic prevails? Sure enough, here on the right-hand side of the road, just a few hundred metres on, the entrance to Turaida Castle, or what's left of it. And on the notice board, in Russian, English, Latvian and German, we've got information about the Turaida Museum Reserve. There's a folk song park, the Turaida Stone Castle itself, Church Hill and Church, the estate, lots of history. If you care to stop and read it. Oh, just when I thought the rain had stopped, it's starting again. Drat. The Garden of God. Wow, that's interesting. Or is it? Oh, that's nice. Can we have that weather today, please? Rather than the drizzly rain, which... Okay, put the camera away. Of course, I reached the highlight of the day, and it's, yes, rainy. I just popped into an old estate cellar building, which these days acts as a ticket office. You have to go in there, pay €6 for an adult, and yes, very nice ladies in there. Also gave me a run through of what's in the castle grounds, together with my options for getting back to Sigulda. There is a bus which runs between here and Sigulda, which goes just across the road over there, reasonably frequently through the afternoon in summer. Depending on what goes on with this rain, I may take advantage of that. I want to walk as much as I can, but it may just be that, particularly with the camera not working too well with the conditions, I might be basically just forced to take the bus. We'll see. Oh, just realised I got the zoom on. I thought things were looking a little bit strange, so the picture quality was probably horrendous. Sorry about that, but you're used to such things with my videos, aren't you? All part of the charm. Yes. Let's move on, shall we? To the castle, Uzpili. That's what we like to hear, Uzpili. I could have turned left and gone and looked at some other things and popped into a building which has a €3 additional fee, which I need to buy a separate ticket for. But to be honest, none of what was over there really sounded very interesting. Not for me, anyway. I just splashed out €6, and you might be going a bit wobbly at the knees, thinking, crikey, that cheap so-and-so never pays for anything. Or he pays for as little as he can get away with paying for. But, you know, like I've said in previous videos, when I've been faced with things which have been 10, 12, 15, 20 euros, and I've not especially wanted to go in there, then I've just decided I won't go in there. And I'll save the money. That money will go to good use in the future. There's a useful toilet, always useful. Lovely tree, in blossom, in bloom. Is it a cherry tree? Don't know, I should know. I've been to Japan, so should know these things by now, but I'm pretty hopeless recognising what trees and what shrubs are which. And Is this the same or similar? Yes, on the other side of the estate is the old smithy, cart house, fish cellar, and the house for indentured servants. That's the building which requires another €3 for some reason. Why would that be? I can't imagine, to be honest with you. Never mind. We're going this way to the castle, and then after the castle, going up this way to the sculpture park, which all looks very nice, and then take the path along and down here to join up the road which we came on, probably at that crossroads which I filmed back there. Might look familiar when we get back there. If I do end up taking this route, it will be full steam ahead late afternoon to Sigulda, and more castle remains to be seen. But first we've got a pretty nice looking scenic castle coming up. This building's previous purpose was as a drying kiln, according to the information board back there. Now it's a souvenir traditional art shop. If you're on your holidays and you want to pick up some things like that. Ooh. Now I really need to visit the Rose of Turaida, don't I? Take a bit of a detour up these steps. Yep, definitely getting a workout today. And up here, our story of lovers Victor Gutmann, possibly, and Maria the orphan will continue. If these screaming school children allow, of course. Now, here we are. Turaida's Rose. This apparently is the burial site of Maria because of the tragic tale which I'm now going to take up again. So we got to the point at the cave where we'd established that Victor had made this cave with his own hands, allegedly. They got engaged, betrothed, and he seemingly sent her a letter to say, I want to meet you at our meeting place. So she went along, and for some reason she took her young stepsister. She was an orphan, remember, having been rescued, but the man later had a daughter who was a little bit younger than her. Odd thing to do, it seems to me, when I read this story, but Maria took her stepsister along with her for this meeting with Victor, and then allegedly, yes, she was given a nasty surprise because it wasn't Victor. Now I'm thinking, how many people at the turn of right at the beginning of the 1600s, I mean, Victor was supposed to be a gardener, I think. I'm not sure what Maria had, if any profession at all. But are they likely to have been able to read and write? I'm not sure. Anyway, she was taken in by the letter. She was able to read it. She went to the agreed meeting place and she met, not Victor, but some Polish guy, a soldier perhaps. What happened was, this guy made his advances towards Maria and he wanted to whisk her away and marry her himself. And Maria wasn't having any of it, so she duped him. She said, please let me go, don't carry me off, and in return I will give you this magic garment that I own. And the magic garment, allegedly, she said, was a garment which would protect anybody who wears it from being struck. So the soldier obviously was tempted by this prospect perhaps even more than by Maria. But of course he was sceptical as well. He took a look at the garment and wasn't wholly convinced. She said, look, I'll wear the garment myself. I will put it around my shoulders and you can strike me with your sword or axe and it will protect me. You cannot hurt me when I'm wearing this. So the soldier decided, it must have been a bit thick, decided he would take her up on the challenge. And yes, it must have been actually quite tempting if you're a soldier back then, or at any time, to think, I'm not sure if I believe in all this magic stuff, but maybe what have I got to lose? Well, what you've got to lose is somebody's life, and sadly that's what happened. The Polish soldier struck Maria with the axe, and of course the garment, which may have been a scarf, wasn't magic at all, was it? I think we all saw that one coming. So Maria died. Victor found her at the site. He was initially blamed for having murdered her, but of course there was the younger girl who luckily escaped, her stepsister, and also the man who acted as a messenger and carried the letter to Maria. He gave evidence in the actual court. Remember, these court papers were found in the middle of the 19th century, hence the story became known again. It seems as though the papers cover the fact that details show Victor was exonerated, and later show that the bad Polish soldier was caught. And not only was he caught, but he was hanged. And I think we can all agree he got his comeuppance, but it doesn't bring Maria back, or didn't. And Victor decided, after burying her back at that burial place we saw there, marked Turaida's Rose, yes, Victor couldn't stand hanging around in the place with memories of Maria everywhere, of course, so he left Latvia forever. A sad, tragic love story, as most of them are, whether they are in myth or in romantic literature or in real life, don't you think? I'm sure we all find, yeah, I've had a tragic romantic history as well. Tell me about it. Ho-ho. Seeing a nice little teaser of sculpture. We'll go back down that way to the main sculpture park shortly, but, or not so shortly, depending, because what I want to do next is get back on the main trail and head towards Turaida Castle itself. Ooh, there's a little I can't resist it. There's a little figure down there and I'm not able to make it out. What is it, a bullfrog or a squatting peasant or something entirely different? Maybe a goblin or a hobgoblin. Who knows the difference between those two? Aha, yes, that is the sculpture park. I see in the distance, so this is the path I'll come back along. So I would have seen this anyway. And now I'm here, I'm thinking, okay, not as interesting as I'd hoped, but still. See, I'm getting greedy now, aren't I? I'm in tourist mode, and I'm getting greedy. I paid €6, and I think the place owes me the earth. Tourists want everything, don't we? Another curious looking bit of sculpture. Oh my goodness. A herd of wild beasts. A herd of wild beasts running in my direction. But luckily, I got out of their way. A little bit like those videos where you see people driving in, I don't know, Canada or something, and suddenly there's a small family of moose sort of galloping in their direction. And they think, oh, crikey, I've got to get off the road, get off the road. Or perhaps in Africa and elephants. Maybe that's a better analogy. Now, where do we emerge? That signpost there probably tell us what was the purpose of this building. Oh, I'm hearing music. And I'm seeing stuff moving. Okay. From the beginning of the 11th to the early 13th century, Turaida is a significant centre of the Gauja Livs, the tribe of people, the Livs. The witnesses of the ancient past can be seen in the exhibition Lives of the Gauja in the Cultural History of Latvia, in the former gardener's house on Turaida Manor. Is that building? I think that would make sense. Coins, hoard of silver jewellery, unique testimonies about culture and trade connections of the Gauja Livs during the 10th and 12th centuries. At about 6th or 7th millennium BC, the ancestors of Livs, Finns, Estonians and other Finno-Ugrians lived together and speak one Proto-Uralic language. I wonder how they know that that's what it was like 7,000 years ago. No, 9,000 years ago. In the present day of Latvia, 180 live, I guess, from which only few speak their native language. Oh, that is a bit sad, isn't it? I'm kind of wishing they hadn't told me now. There's the tree of life, or tree of death when it comes to the live language. Okie dokie. Is this the former gardener's house? Oh, we're really close to the castle.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings, put your hand to the bat, put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag, I ain't play no games, I just do that's fact. And I don't feel no shame, it's a mood you lack. I go crazy, nah, but I ain't lazy. Track after track, I work on the shit daily. Pass me the jack, right as fuel, got me hazy. About to unpack all these things I've been chasing. I've got visions in my head, like memories after death. To be a legend instead of something you can forget. I'm living up every breath, I'd rather lead than be led. I'll fill the seats as I spread, with every word that I've said. How's it supposed to feel? How's it supposed to feel?
Marginally better lighting in here, but it still feels a bit like church conditions, which is unfortunate. Fine for the naked eye, but not so good for filming. But can't have it all. So there's the big cheese, the Bishop of Riga. So this is the ground floor of an exhibition in another castle building. What have we got upstairs? Better just check a bit of the history here, hadn't we? And there were religious groups all over the Baltics, including the Livonians, the Curonians, and the Order of Sword Brothers. However, 1237 they were abolished and incorporated into the Teutonic Order, forming the Livonian branch of the order, which I think is what we read about up in Estonia, wasn't it? A few videos back. Oh, it's nice and warm in here. Some more history. In the Middle Ages, a person's affiliation to the clergy, the knights, or the peasantry determined their main duties and rights. The clergy prayed to God, the knights made war, the peasants worked to provide for themselves and the others. So what would you rather be? One of the clergy, one of the knights, or one of the peasants? Of course I wouldn't have a choice, I would be a peasant. And I think maybe I'd be tempted to stay a peasant, given I might be offered a knighthood or a diocese of my own. But no, I think I would have stayed quite contentedly as a peasant. An invasion of Livonia by Russian forces in 1558 began the Livonian War. Again, I think that's something we read about at a previous castle. At Grodno, which is in modern-day Belarus, in 1566, the Polish Sejm, which was the Polish government, I think, their parliament, secularized the Archbishopric of Riga and incorporated it into the Transdaugava Duchy. Crikey. Turaida became a county seat of the Transdaugava Duchy. So many twisty-turny bits of history, trying to get it all clear in your head. Tricky. This is a nice exhibition room, not just because it's warm, it's also light. Some traditional music in the background. And plenty to see. an interactive display. And there's a face I've seen before. Who's that chap? Ah, Martin Luther. Maybe that's the face. More displays in Latvian and in English. So you could probably spend a whole day here trying to get to grips with learning your Latvian history. Yeah, seeing the weapons is a reminder. I think I would have liked to stay a peasant. I wonder if life expectancy of a peasant was longer than life expectancy of a knight. I think the people in the clergy probably lived the longest, didn't they? I might be wrong on that. Oh, and that's fascinating. I don't say that very often, but it actually is. I've not seen a chart before showing so precisely the elements of a castle by its dates. That's wonderful. And the beginning of it was, yes, quite relatively small by comparison. And I think in a previous exhibition I saw in one of the other buildings, the inference was that originally it was in wood. The settlement here on the hill, which, not surprising really, is it? I think that's how many settlements begin. Certainly up in Tallinn it started that way, and I think you could go across a lot of Europe and find that early settlements were first in wood before the artisanship of the mason allowed large impressive strongholds to be rebuilt in stone. Got some mannequins up there. I was just double checking if they were real people, because there are a couple of ladies at least in the building who I tried not to film because I don't want to embarrass them. A little bit of a shame because they're in nice national costume, you know, traditional costume. But equally, they're probably not paid enough to have an idiot like me pointing my camera at them, so I won't hassle them like that. So now I'm feeling, yeah, I'm getting my full money's worth here in this display, because it's not in half darkness. And it's not just because I can film it, but also it's a more pleasant environment if you're in a tower which has been provided with decent lighting and that extra bonus of warmth. Well, why not linger longer? Linger longer and learn more. The stables, working stables. Looks like it wasn't just for housing the horses, far from it. Far more going on here. That's a nice reconstruction there, showing pieces of a soldier's rifle. Only a certain number of pieces remain, along with some musket balls and a badge, it seems, the soldier would have worn on his uniform. But it's nice to see it, the exhibition display those fragments of the weapon alongside a full, almost full painting of how the weapon was in real life. Nice to see so much on display. Definitely elevates this building as one worth coming into. And oh, how many times have we seen this image in Europe? I think this man went around when there was plague in town, didn't he? Whether the beak was effective in not inhaling contaminated air, or whether that fire stick was useful, who knows? Perhaps there was just enough oxygen in that beak initially to allow him to do a bit of a walk around a house where there are people with boils and running sores and dead bodies. If he had to go in there and try and half fumigate the place and remove the corpses. Plague. Any mention of plague? Plague from the eyewitness's point of view. Number 5. Vodka distilling is mentioned. Vodka distilling began after Russia and Sweden made peace in 1721. So 300 years plus, just over 300 years, they've had vodka here. I had a feeling it might actually have got here earlier, but there you go. They were beer and mead drinkers beforehand, and yeah, the mead from honey. Interestingly, in this part of the world, the live peoples in the 12th century were making honey from their hives, which I've never heard of this before, but they were tree hives. Apparently they dug into tree bark, hollowed out a big enough area, as high as 3 meters high, which is huge, isn't it? To provide a natural enclosure where the bees could be attracted to come and do their business. And then, of course, the men must have had some interesting ways hundreds of years ago of removing the bees from the locality while they went and nicked the honey. Tree hives of the live people of the 12th century. There you go. Worth remembering. And that's the end. That was a nice little display.